Welcome to the recording of the Ask the Experts Partners 2020 session for Accounting and Finance. This recording is hosted by careers consultant Jennifer Simpson, and she's joined by guests Tom Cullen, Analyst, Audit technical author Aidan Beck, and tax manager Hayley Deming for a discussion on the accounting and finance industry. Each guest will start off with a presentation before we lead into a Q&A with questions submitted by you, the partner students. Hope you enjoy this recording and you find it informative. And without further ado, we're going to start with a presentation from Tom Cullen, Analyst at Barclays Investment Bank.
Yeah, so hi guys. So my name's Tom Cullen. I went to Newcastle University for both my undergraduate degree and my master's degree. I studied mathematics for my undergrad, and then I loved it so much I decided to stay but change over to study banking and finance at Newcastle University. In my time, before I get on to what I do now as a career, I think it's important to understand kind of the journey I went on and how I got where I am. In my time at Newcastle, I was very much interested in finance, so I started Newcastle University's Investment Society. It turned out to be widely popular, and actually in its second year we grew it to one of the biggest university societies with more than 250 people there, and it was a society where we could meet, learn and actually produce work which we could kind of use to put on our CVs and give us that advantage when applying for jobs in finance. Then in my master's year we set up something called NCL Capital Partners, which was Newcastle University's student managed fund. So this gave students the opportunity to actively gain work experience in doing analysis on companies and deciding which companies we should invest in, which we shouldn't. And we run it like it's an actual job, of course, without the full-time commitment, but that was really good, massively popular. We had 100 students sign up, and that's still going today, something that's still offered, and it just gets better year on year. But given this wide experience and extracurricular activities in finance, it was quite natural that when I finished my master's, I went to go work for an investment bank. Now, and you're going to see three different speakers on here today. It's quite a broad field and industry. Even when you go to a firm and you do a specific job, you find out quite quickly that jobs become very niche very quickly. So without wanting to bore you on what my really specific role is, I effectively work on the sales side for an investment bank. So we have clients who span all different client types. So hedge funds with billions under management, corporations, other banks. I effectively manage the relationships of them for the business they're doing with our bank. And I work for Barclays. Of course, today, just as a bit of a disclaimer, anything I say is views of my own, and I'm not here representing them. But I effectively kind of manage various relationships for the business I'm in. And the specific business I work in is called Prime Services, but effectively clients can hold trading accounts with us. And this isn't individual clients. To put in perspective, you need to be an institution with wealth of more than 150 million to open an account with us. But you can hold your trading account with us, and then all the services around the trading activity you're doing, so stocks, bonds, we provide a variety of services, and I manage those relationships. It was quite a long time coming that I broke into investment banking. It started, I knew I wanted to go into it quite early on, actually, before university. And it's something, definitely university is really fun and you have a great time, but the career and where you end up, it's good to start thinking about it as early as possible. There's a lot of competition and a lot of people now doing 1 week, 2 week placements in A levels. They're doing a spring week in their first year, a summer internship in their second year. So it's really shifting from, you graduate and then looking for a job to it's something in your mind all the way through university. Now, having said that, the job I do at the minute, I had no idea what it was when I took the job. All I knew was I wanted to work in sales and I wanted to work for a big investment bank. But the actual specifics of the job, I had no idea about. So, having said that, it's important to have an idea of the field you want to go into, or to build some experience, but you don't have to be set on what you want to do. And I'd say that's the same for, what you study at university. So for my master's, I studied banking and finance, but for my undergrad, I studied maths, which is quite, similar in the style of thinking, but also, very, very different. And maths tends to, when you start studying at university level, tends to become so niche that it doesn't become applicable to anything. So, a bit of advice is do something you enjoy at university, and make sure you leave yourself with, something that leaves you a lot of options, like I had. And then when I was, fully committed to going to finance, I then studied my master's in it.
At this point, we'll hand over to Aidan Beck, who's going to talk to you a little bit about his background and his experience at university.
So as Jennifer said there, my name is Aidan. So the undergraduate degree I did at Newcastle University it's called Business Accounting and Finance. So that was a 4-year partnership degree between PwC, who I work for, which is one of the big professional services firms, Newcastle Uni, and also the ICAW, which is Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. So as Tom said there, in terms of, when you're thinking about university, it's important to think about what you want to do as a career. That's why I went down the path that I did, because I did know at that point that I wanted to be a chartered accountant. So that kind of ticked off all the boxes, because I was going to a great university in a great city, which I'm obviously biased about because I'm from the area anyway. But also it was a great degree program, and it sort of fast tracked me to get into the career that I wanted to go into. So the degree, it's a 4-year degree, and in your second, third and fourth year you have placements with PwC. So my placements were at the East Midlands office, which is near Nottingham, which got me a lot of great experience because I was working with big clients, small clients in the audit department in quite a young age, and I was speaking to quite senior people and building a network of people who I was able to learn from. There was a sort of great culture of learning from people, and I think learning from experience is obviously really important. So I started full time in September 2017 and qualified as a chartered accountant in 2018. And when I started full time, I was working in the East Midlands still, but I moved back to Newcastle in audit in September 18. But now I'm on a secondment from audit in the learning and development department. So whereas audit, you work with different companies to make sure that the financial statements are in check, so to speak, or true and fair, as we would say. Now I work in an internal department within PwC. So what I'm involved in is helping write the training content, which is mandatory for people who are going through the different year groups within audit. So making sure that the content is, it's being able to train people to perform the work to a high quality and that kind of thing. So that's obviously quite a bit different to what I was doing before. But I think in terms of how university and the placements helped me, it's sort of made me build my confidence. Obviously university helped me build my independence as well, because I lived away from home when I was at uni. And through all of this, I've been able to make some great friends and build great networks of all around the country, and to be fair, all around the world, because people who I graduated with now live in New Zealand and Australia and that kind of thing, which is pretty cool. And yeah, just being able to get such a great amount of experience working with loads of different clients and loads of different industries. Obviously now trying something a little bit different to even that. So yeah, I don't think that's pretty whistle-stop tour of my background.
That's great. Thank you very much, Aidan. Fantastic. So now that brings us to Hayley.
Okay, so I'm Hayley Deeming. I'm a tax manager at UNW LLP, which is a northeast-based local firm. So I used to work for PwC, which is obviously one of the biggest accountancy firms, but UNW is just a Newcastle office. So we cover clients from all over the northeast, as we have a few big national clients, but mainly we're northeast based. So that's slightly different to one of the big firms. So why am I here talking to you? I'm a teacher at Newcastle University, so I teach the tax seminars for the accountancy degree. So that's how I've got involved in this. So I might see some of you at some point if you want to come along and be on the accountancy degree. I was the first person ever in my family to go to university, but I had a very working class background, really good work ethic all throughout my family, which probably is where mine came from. But some of you might be in that position as well. So I think this is a really great programme to support people who might not have the support elsewhere to go to university, and you can have a really good academic career, even if you're in that position. So I lived at home while I was at university. I went to the University of Leeds and did a law degree, mainly because that's what I enjoyed my A-levels. I did A-level law as well. So as Tom said, I think it's really important as well that you do something you enjoy, because you're going to be putting a lot of your life into it. So that's one of the important things when you're making choices. I lived in Harrogate, travelled on the train, about 40-minute train journey every day, and worked the whole time. So I worked about 16 to 20 hours a week in waitressing jobs and bar jobs at the same time. I was a bit scared writing this, 18 years of experience in the accountancy industry. That's probably the age a lot of you are at the moment. So I've worked for a Big Four, I've that full time, I've had time off with my children, and now work part time in 2 different jobs. Got quite a broad range of experience. I trained on the PwC graduate scheme in the tax department, so I've always worked in tax. We spent about a year doing our ACA exams full time. They sent us all to Manchester to live in a flat together, which was quite fun. So 10 of us who all joined at the same time. And then I had a few years off with my children after I'd qualified, and then went back to work at UNW part-time. So university gave me skills which you need to succeed on any job, I suppose, of being having some initiative, being self-directed, and because I was working at the same time, being able to juggle work and study, which you will have to do when you start work, very much about juggling. So PwC graduate scheme, as Tom said, it is things at the moment are a very competitive environment. It's quite competitive, it's quite intense, it's hard work. So you need to be able to be self-directed, you need to be motivated. If you choose something you enjoy, you're probably more likely to be those things as well. So I'm a tax manager, so what does that actually mean? You might not know what we actually do. We review corporation tax returns and personal tax returns, so we're dealing with individuals and with companies. We prepare company accounts, tax notes, so every company has a set of accounts, and within that are tax disclosures, and we prepare those as well. If there are special queries from clients that we can't answer, I'll go away and find the answer or find someone who can answer those. Technical research and discussions, so we might have discussions with specialists, or we might have discussions with partners or with other managers across the firm about something in particular that comes up that we don't immediately know the answer to. Lots of things that we have to send to HMRC, which is the tax inspector. We sometimes have to ask if it's okay to do something in advance, so we prepare a document that explains what we're doing and why. We also make claims for things like R&D tax relief, so where companies are doing innovative work, they can get lots of tax relief for that. So we have to prepare papers explaining what's happening. And coaching and training junior staff. So I run for UNW the training of our apprentices. We take on graduates and school leavers at UNW. So some of the people joining our firm are only 18, and they come in and sit exams and work at the same time. So I've put in the middle that is managing relationships, which really that's what it all is about. It's very important that you can manage internal and external relationships, that you can manage expectations. You have to be able to explain to people when things are coming, and actually what clients really want to know is how much tax they have to pay. Really, that's what they're interested in. If you work in tax, they're going to do something, and how much will that cost them? That's really what they want to know. So that's what we do. And as I said, I also teach, so I work at UNW part-time, around 3 days a week, and then I also teach the tax seminars at the university as well. So I had to think about what skills I think are needed for my role, well, generally to work in tax accountancy in general. So the things that I think are important are attention to detail. We're dealing with legal documents like accounts and tax returns. So you have to, if you notice that something isn't quite right or isn't tying into something else or isn't what you expect, then you have to care enough to go away and find out why. And if you can't find out why on your own, you have to go on to kind of your next manager and ask them to find out why. So it's really about picking up things that aren't exactly right. So you have to have very good attention to detail. Be able to explain things at different levels. So sometimes I might be explaining things to a brand new member of staff who's just finished their A-levels. They've never seen anything to do with tax before. Some clients are not tax savvy at all, so they need things explaining at a very basic level. Or you might be having to explain something to a partner who's reviewing your work, who wants to know very high level information. So I used to present graduate recruitment things for PwC. And there was quite a big misconception that you had to be very good at maths to be an accountant. And I think it's actually the opposite. You have to be very good at explaining and writing to be an accountant. Because my job is more of a kind of business tax advisor rather than a traditional accountant. You obviously have to be comfortable with numbers, but it's about writing and explaining more, I would say. Relationship skills are very important. You'll have a huge range of relationships with clients, with other members of staff, at all different levels and in all different departments who might be doing different things. So you have to maintain those as you go along. So first of all, you start by building on the relationships when you first start, and then somehow finding a way to maintain those with very different personalities of people. But what I've always liked about working in practice is that you have a lot of different people to work with. So if you work somewhere and you have one boss and you don't get along with that person, which is perfectly feasible, then you don't have that in practice. You have lots of different bosses. So we have a client team for each client. So you might be working for 6 or 7 different managers, which is good because then you get a range of different people and experience. Prioritizing and juggling is incredibly important. I have a list of work that I need to do. Quite often I'll go in on a Monday and think, right, I know what I'm doing this week, and don't get any of it done because it's interrupted by urgent things coming in all the time. There might be queries from clients that you don't expect. The auditors might have forgotten to tell you that they're working on one of your clients, and they'll send you some accounts and say, we need those figures tomorrow. So instead of what you had planned to do, you have to do those things. So fend off the urgent things while also keeping an eye on your list to make sure that you don't miss any deadlines from there. Because the longer you leave things, the more urgent they become. So they're the 4 things that I thought are really, really important to be able to do well in my job. So my tips for university, this has been mentioned before as well, so do something other than just study. You need to have something to kind of take the stress off when it's stressful, and other activities give you that. And also to give you something to talk about at interviews. So it can be anything at all, really. Work, volunteering. I'm also a scout leader volunteer, and most of the scout groups I know would love to have a young person go and help them for 3 years while they're at university. So work or volunteer, join clubs, just do something that gives you something to talk about. Develop and maintain a work ethic, I think, is very important. You'll go to university and it might be the first time that you've been fully responsible for yourself, which might make you think, this is great, no one's here to tell me to do anything. But actually this is the start of your career, and if you leave it for too long, that will just become a habit and you'll end up falling behind and not be able to catch up. And actually you've got a huge amount of leisure time compared to when you get into the world of work. So yes, enjoy it, but realise that when you start work and you've only got 4 weeks of holiday, actually you've got loads of time to yourself right now. So you can afford to go to your 9 AM seminars, which I teach and aren't very busy. So I know that you're not all going. So please go, and do work hard and also enjoy it at the same time. So learn to talk to people outside your comfort zone. It's very hard if you haven't been kind of shown through your life so far how to do it. It's very hard to go and talk to new people. That's why I've put, you'll know, you are the young internet generation, that you can find out anything online. So if you're not sure how to introduce yourself, go and find out on Google or YouTube and watch some videos of other people doing it. If you're not sure of which small talk questions you could ask at careers events, just Google it and find out, because there will be that information there online. If I'm going to, we run kind of employment tax seminars every year, and before I go, I make a list of which ones of my clients are going, and then write down questions that I could ask them. So anything that I've seen their business is up to in the news, or anything that I remember that they told me on the phone, I'll make a list so that I don't have to think about it off the top of my head in a stressful situation. So even after 18 years, then I'm still doing that. So it's okay to look things up in advance to kind of help you. So they were my tips, and that is all in my presentation, Jen.
Hopefully you found those presentations helpful and insightful. We now take you into the Q&A portion of the session, where you'll see Jen asking Aidan, Hayley and Tom some of the questions that you submitted prior to the session.
I guess sort of just to kick things off, because I know it can be a little bit, I suppose my first question would be, how did you know? How did you know? So a couple of you said, oh, you know, I knew I wanted to go into accountancy, or I knew I wanted to work for PwC or whatever. I guess my question would be, how did you arrive at that decision? Was it a broad idea? Was it a very definite idea? And what did you do to kind of figure that out as you went? And that's anyone that wants to jump in.
I can go first.
Jen.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, then you go first.
Okay. Well, I guess it wasn't definitive as such. I mean, I did sort of the mandatory work experience in, was it year 10 that I had to do, and I actually did that at a solicitor's firm, which I quite enjoyed, because there was, you know, there's analytical side of that, and conversations, and you know, building relationships and teamwork. Obviously, I didn't really get into it at that much level at 15. But then, it's to be a bit blunt, like quite a few of my family have worked in law, and there's not that much money in criminal law, is what I'd heard. And my granddad had sort of said about, because he knew quite a few chartered accountants who had set up firms, like what about this? Because bearing in mind the things that I enjoyed and the skills that I'd picked up. So, for example, by this point I'm in year 12 and I was doing German, maths and history, which are all quite analytical subjects and attention to detail and rules and that sort of thing that you need to learn. And I thought, yeah, okay. So I set up a week of work experience, or maybe it was 2 weeks at the end of year 12 over the summer. And I thought, you know, actually I do quite enjoy doing this. By this point, coincidentally, I'd started thinking about maybe university, and I'd seen the sort of things I might apply for, and then I saw about the PwC one. So it wasn't necessarily a deliberate thing, but it was just through conversations and a bit of research and trying things out that I kind of arrived at that sort of conclusion.
Fantastic, thank you. So a key aspect, certainly as a careers consultant, there was the fact that you gained some experience to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Tom, should we come to you next?
Yeah. Hi guys. I'll just first apologise about my video. My internet keeps cutting out, so you've just got my voice to listen to at the minute. So I'm probably going to tell you something which a lot of people aren't going to tell you, but like, it doesn't really matter. And what I mean by that is, I wouldn't stress and worry too much about it. You know, of course, in the long run, I can say, okay, I work at a bank because I studied maths. It's a quantitative subject. But equally, there's people who work alongside me who studied English, who studied French. There's people who didn't, you know, they didn't know they wanted to go into banking until they were 30 years old. So it kind of feels like when you're going through this journey, when you're coming out of school to university, you know, they say you need to pick your GCSEs, you need to pick your A-levels, you need to pick your kind of university choice. And at the time, it feels like it's the most important thing in the world. And it is to a degree, but it doesn't really matter. If you pick something you like, you enjoy, and you're happy to study, then when the time comes when you decide what you want to do as a career, you can always, if you need to go back and do another degree, if you need to do a conversion course, if you need to go back and redo A-levels, it's quite easy to do that, which I think no one really tells you when you're going through this journey. And, you know, I speak to a lot of young people who feel quite pressured, and even people at university, because they're not sure what they want to do with the next step, and they feel like there's a lot of pressure and weight on their shoulders for making the right decision. And the right decision is the decision which at the time you feel most comfortable and happy with. It isn't the decision where you think is, you know, going to be the most strategic. You know, that might pay off for you, but my point being, if you down the line change your mind, it's quite easy to change your mind. In fact, even if you get to university, do 1 year on a course and decide you don't like it, you can change your course. If you, same with like 2 years, there's never you will never have this opportunity again. So that's one thing I would bear in mind. Pick something you like, pick something you're comfortable with. If you know what career you want to do, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to go into finance, excellent. But if you don't know that, don't worry. It will come. And there's just another point which, you know, Hayley brought up on her slides, which I actually wanted to touch on, the third point, which I think is really important. It's about putting yourself out of your comfort zone. I just wanted to add to that, because I think the most important thing about university is it's about opening your mind. I could probably teach anyone to do my job. You know, working in investment bank, considered a very respectable job, but I think I could teach anyone to do it, because the skills that you need to do it are fairly easy to teach. But what's not easy to teach is kind of a view of the world, is a certain mindset which you get by doing a lot of different experiences, you know, interacting and meeting and becoming friends with a lot of different people, knowing how to manage a lot of different people is important. So kind of when you go to university, put yourself out of your comfort zone. It's such a good platform. There are so many different types of people and so many different opportunities. You will never get that broad of opportunity again, ever. It will just never be there in front of you as easy accessible as it is at university. So utilize that to put yourself out of your comfort zone, to become a well-rounded person and to open your mind, because fundamentally, when it comes to all the small skills, you'll learn them and you'll pick them up through work, whereas that mindset and that view of the world is something that's much harder to develop, and it only comes from kind of putting yourself out there and meeting a lot of different people.
That's fab, thank you very much. And Hayley, when did you start to realise that the world of finance was calling?
Well, I had no idea what I wanted to do, really. I knew I wanted to stay local, and so I just applied to all of the big places around me in law and accountancy, because the accountancy kind of stuff is quite similar to law. And then got offered the PwC programme and thought, well, that's a really good general business qualification. The ACA is a very good qualification where you can go and do a lot of things afterwards. So I thought, well, really, I don't know what I want to do long term, so I'll do that now. So it was just a kind of now decision. I'll do that now. That won't do me any harm, and I'll go and do that.
So there's no right or wrong, there's no prescribed way to arrive at these things. I guess, and you can answer as honestly as you like, being a member of the career service, I'm obviously very biased, but I'm curious to know if any of you got involved with the career service, if any of you utilised any of the events that went on in the university during your time there, if they were helpful, or failing that, how did you build that into your life, that building that career awareness, if it wasn't necessary through our service?
I think for me, I didn't really have to, just because with it being a partnership degree, I knew that if I passed the exams and the degree and I did well on my placements and passed them, that I would get the job. So a little bit of that was sort of front loaded in doing the interview in the assessment centre to get on the degree, so that was slightly different. That being said, going the other way, I've tried to get myself involved to help people. So I've come back to the university a few times and I've helped at PwC in recruitment events just to try and pass on some of my thoughts and advice. So it's kind of, it ends up being a little bit front loaded with flying start degree, I guess.
I appreciate your honesty.
No worries.
and I don't know who to come to next. I don't know. Tom, shall we go with you?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I did, and I think first of all, in terms of career service, I think a lot of people don't make the most out of all the resources the university have. Like there's a lot of people willing and able to help, so you know it's kind of important when you get there to literally use every resource possible. One thing that in terms of career and getting help, the biggest thing I could advise you to do is literally go on LinkedIn and speak to alumni. It is very, very, very rare if you reach out to Newcastle alumni and say, hey, I'm either at Newcastle or I'm going to Newcastle, I'm interested in this as a career, can you have a quick chat with me? Everyone will say yes, and that's the best way to do it. London universities, Oxbridge are really good at doing this. They drill it into people at the university to utilise the alumni base. Newcastle have launched some really good things. So there's NCL Spark, which allows you to pair with a mentor who is a Newcastle alumni. But in terms of developing your career as well as utilising the career service, use the alumni base, and that 9 out of 10 times means get on LinkedIn, find someone who works in something you're interested in and just ask them for a chat. You don't need to like have loads of prescribed questions. It can be, look, hey, what do you do? How did you get into doing it? And it's a great way to kind of build connections in the industry as well as getting some good advice.
Thank you for that, Tom. I really appreciate it. I'm resisting the urge to call you Yasmin. Just FYI.
Oh yeah, I apologise about that.
It's going to happen at some point, so I apologise. Hayley, how about you? Did you interact much with the career service?
Mine was quite a long time ago, so I can't remember too much. 20 years ago, but I think so. I think I do remember going to the careers service to find out what the Big Four was, or the Big Five at the time, because I kept hearing it, and because I was doing a law degree, it was more talk about law careers, and I kept hearing the Big Five. What's that? And I remember going to try and find out at the careers service. But in a law degree, you're applying for courses a year before people generally would, so you're starting to apply at the start of year 2. So there was a lot of talk then about applying for the legal practice course and the careers in law, but not much for anything else. So there wasn't much talk of people outside in the law degree doing things outside law.
That's marvellous, thank you. We've got some questions that were sent in advance from one of our partners members, a chap called Alexander, and he's got a few range of questions. So I'm gonna fire these out if that's all right. I'm going to start with quite a tricky one. He's asked, what's the best and worst career decision you've ever made?
I'm happy to start on that. The worst career decision I ever made was not taking time off to go traveling before starting a career. I know it's not really a career decision per se, but kind of when you do things in life, you get certain opportunities at certain times in your life, but harder to do later down the line. And I really regret not going and having a year of just traveling the world and experiencing, you know, different things, because now I'm in a career, I'm in a professional career. I'm never going to go work in a bar in Costa Rica and spend a month there. You know, it's just stuff I'm not going to do because my future looks quite differently now. So definitely not taking that time out for myself is something I regret. In terms of a best career decision that I've ever made, I think it's not really a career decision, but the best thing I did was probably sacrifice. So in, you know, as I mentioned, investment banking, very competitive. When I was going for internships, you know, the application, they open, you know, the start of September. I had everything ready the day I was applying for them, the day they opened. I'd done 2 months of prep. I hadn't done anything socially in about a month and a half over the summer. It's not fun when you're spending 8 hours a day over the summer at a uni, like prepping and getting yourself ready for job interviews, doing psychometric tests, practicing interviews. It's not really fun, and when all your friends are going have fun, it feels, it's not nice. But that was the best thing I did, because come September, I apply, I'm there, ready to go. I already have the information. I know the exact places I'm applying for. I know what I want to do. I know the interview questions, etc. It put me in a great spot. I secured something by mid-October, which meant that when everyone else at university was trying to balance the course and applying for jobs, I already had something in the bag. And it was a really good job. So I think that was probably the best decision I made.
Thanks. That's really honest of you. That's really valuable insight. Thank you for that, because we don't often talk about like the sort of the well-being element of things. So I think it's really good, and I think that things like travel, it can really add to your worldview, to your confidence, putting yourself out of your comfort zone. It all feeds back to that idea of developing who you are in terms of your career. So thank you. Kayli.
I'm struggling to think of a worst. I'll tell you my best. Under pressure. I left PwC when I qualified at PwC, became a manager, and then left when I had my first child. I didn't go back after maternity leave, and I think that was my best decision. So that's, again, the work-life balance type thing. It's very, very difficult to have home responsibilities and work at one of the big four, I would say. Some people do. I've seen kind of whole spectrum of people doing it. This mainly applies generally, although it shouldn't, still in the workplace, to women as well who've had children and either want to go back or don't. It still doesn't tend to be the men who have the caring responsibilities. I took a break for 7 years. So I was off work full-time with my then 2 children before going back to UNW. And I've now got 2 roles, which I really enjoy. So I've got variety. I work in practice and for the university. And they're roles where I can balance my home responsibilities as well. It might not be what I do forever, still got plenty of working life left, unfortunately, but that suits me for the moment. So leaving PwC and taking that break was my best decision.
Fantastic. Aidan, I don't know if you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any sort of worst decisions. There's been sort of moments where, when I haven't been selfish at work, and what I mean by that is where I felt like I've drifted and not had the confidence to speak up and say, this is what I actually want, this is how I want to develop. I've always been quite a sort of, times of being low on confidence and haven't sort of gone out there and got opportunities, and it's the people who shout a little bit louder about themselves who've got them. So yes, when I moved into this department on this secondment, I'd been thinking about wanting to do something different for a while, but I'd always sort of put the tasks in front of me, like the work that I've been given, I'd always done that and then put off actually going out there and sort of researching what else I might be interested in. So that was probably one thing I maybe could have done a bit earlier, albeit it hasn't really affected me, but it's just about sometimes being selfish about your own development and what your own goals are. But the best decision I made, I would still go back to like when I got into this degree, to be honest, because I was able to, I've got the ACA qualification now, and it'll hopefully open more doors for me in the future. But I'm happy about what I've done. I mean, I'll go back to the point that Tom made earlier. Like, it's absolutely not a race. Like, a career isn't a race. I just knew that I wanted to do that, so it felt in my hands a little bit. But like Tom said, if you don't know, then do something that you enjoy, because you'll build up the skills anyway. But for me, the best decision I did make was applying and getting on the degree that I got now.
Fantastic, thank you for that. And I know it's a bit of a hard one to put you on the spot. Alexander also asks a little bit about time management. I know a couple of you have already touched on this, making sure that you kind of tackle things up front and try and be as proactive as possible. But kind of in your day-to-day, can I ask a little bit about how you do organise your time and how you do maintain a work-life balance?
I think so. I tend to have conversations about what's the priority, whether that be with the people who are more senior than me or the people who are more junior than me. It was a little bit more challenging in audit than what it is now, because in audit I had multiple projects going on at the same time with multiple stakeholders. So at times it is quite difficult, but you always have your longer term plan in terms of what needs to be done, but then that always gets reined in and things go up in the air. So it's just about having little short term goals and trying to keep yourself sort of sane by breaking things down into manageable chunks, and not being afraid to shout up for help if you need it. Work-life balance, well, with what I'm doing now, is obviously it's quite a bit. It's been quite a bit better. I'm not going to lie. But in order, I think, well, in generally, it's just having upfront, if you've got commitments that you do, whether that be sporting commitments or the gym or whatever, on certain days, say like, oh, this is non-negotiable, I'm going to leave at this time. And at PwC there is like a culture of trust and allowing people to, well, obviously all working from home now, but there was already that kind of trust there where if you needed to work from home you could, and it was a case of as long as the work gets done. So if you need to work, if you had appointments during the day, or you wanted to leave early and do a little bit later, then that's fine. You trusted to manage your own time.
Brilliant, thank you. I don't know if one of the other guys wants to jump in, just in terms of time management.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So first of all, there's a TED talk called How to Achieve Your Most Ambitious Goals. I recommend watching it. It genuinely changed my life. And there's a bit he talks about time management where he effectively, on his commute to work every day, he learned German. And literally that stayed with me forever. So for example, anytime traveling anywhere, I try to do something productive and efficient. Even if you're having to do work on your phone or you're, learning a new language in that time, if you've got exams, the times I revise for exams, I don't make an hour in the evening. I try to use all my time commuting. Anything I'm doing that I don't need to actively think about it, I will revise then. So I feel with time management, it's about optimizing your time. Stuff like, and I know you've probably heard it a lot, but just delete Facebook off your phone. Keep Messenger, because obviously that's talking to people, but stuff where you scroll, delete Twitter, they're literally just a waste of your time. So I'd probably say they're my two kind of important things, like optimize the time when you don't have to think to do something productive, and delete everything or remove everything that doesn't give you any value and just wastes your time.
That's brilliant advice, actually. I could take a bit of a lesson on the old Instagram front, definitely. Hayley.
I still have Instagram.
Yeah, I think for how to do time management, I think it's a bit like revision, and you have to find something that works for you, because everybody's brain's kind of taking information in a different way. So I have a written list, but I know lots of people keep spreadsheets at my firm as well. But in terms of how to keep your list on the go, it's about what works for you. Like Aidan said, you'll have something in your mind that you think you need to do, but then you'll be interrupted a lot. You have to be able to deal with interruptions while still keeping a focus on the things you need to do. At my level, I just run my own workload. So if somebody wants a meeting with me, I'm the person organising it, so I fit it around my own commitments. When you come into somewhere at a junior level, you're having all that thrust upon you, so you don't have much choice in things. So you do have to kind of speak up, and I think that you need to communicate a lot. It's much more difficult now we're all at home. We're all having to communicate through Teams and phone calls rather than just popping over and seeing somebody in the office. So that might be the kind of environment that you're going to learn in. So you might not feel like it's an alien environment when you're into your second, third year of university or first year of work, and that's all you know. At the moment, that's where we're going from being in a very busy office hub to now being completely remote from each other. And that needs different kinds of communication skills. But very strong communication, I think, is the key to time management and to managing other people's expectations, because that's a lot of what time management is about.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm just conscious of time. So as maybe a final kind of question, it would be really good to understand from you guys what your total highlight of studying at Newcastle was. And that can be program related, city related, university related, night out related, whatever you want. But when you think about your university time, what really stands out to you?
We used to have our course ball, I think, was always a highlight for me every year, just because it's all 4 years together at an event. Which is obviously quite nice, black tie, 3-course meal, that kind of thing. But also, you get to know loads of people, and the degree that I was on, it was like a little family anyway, and that was like that just sort of sprung to mind. It was one of the highlights of the calendar for me.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah. I'm happy to go next. If you did want me to run through my highlights of university, I'd probably be here for the next 10 years. We probably reminisce at least once a day on something about university. Honestly, and I'm not just saying this, is the best time of your life. Like, degree, job, everything aside, it is so much fun. It's like, imagine if you were 14 and people tell you go live with your friends, and obviously you've got to go into lectures, but it's not like school where people are forcing you to wear uniform, etc. It's a lot more they trust you to manage your own time. And it's so much fun. Sports night, join a sports team. Even if you're like not massive on the sport, like the community you meet in the sports night team and the sports night is definitely one of the highlights of university. It's friends you keep with you once you leave, and you don't have to join the football. There's plenty of sports. For example, I played ice hockey. So yeah, that's probably my advice, and definitely too many highlights to mention, but sports nights out and the sporting events were definitely a highlight.
Thanks very much, Tom. That's brilliant. And Hayley?
Well, I went to Leeds University, not Newcastle, but similar. But I have lived in Newcastle for a long time now, since before I even qualified. So, kind of consider myself as a almost Newcastle person. So I think as well, like Aidan, meeting lots of different people. So my network of people now who I know from university includes partners at law firms and someone with their own sustainability company, people who work in events management, even though they've done a law degree. So you meet this whole range of people that then become your first professional network. And you're like you said about LinkedIn, you're all on LinkedIn together. You can contact each other if you need to. I've had people ask me questions about tax because they know that I now work in tax, and do I know anyone who can help them? So you just start building your network straight away, which is really important for your career. And the balls were fun as well. I remember the balls now. It was too long ago to be part of my day-to-day memory, but
That's fantastic, thank you. Final question. Top tip. If you were starting university this September, what would be your one top tip that you would try and stick to?
I think I go back to the networking thing. I mean, meet as many people. You'll meet people naturally, but just try and build as many friendships as you can, because the best friends that I've got are the friends that I made at university, and I ended up living with the same guys in second, third, and fourth year. I all a great set of lads, and one of them lives in New Zealand now, and I went to visit him. So I think just making sure that you just get involved in as much as you can, speak to as many people as you can, because you'll make some great friends that you'll be friends for the rest of your life.
Thanks, Aidan.
yeah, I would say go out and do things. So do something that isn't. I worked really hard, but it was really just work all the time. So I wish that I'd done a little bit more of the social stuff, but I stayed at home for various reasons. So go out and do things and do different things. Go out of your comfort zone. Talk to people, even if you're not comfortable doing that. Force yourself to go and talk to people, and it will become more comfortable as time goes on. And everyone is in the same situation as you as well. They're all new. They're going to a completely new environment. They might not know the city. You might, but a lot of people won't even know their way around. So even the most confident people in outward appearance might not be inside. So just go out and force yourself to do things.
Thank you. And final word to Tom.
This might be a bit controversial, but my one biggest bit of advice is to enjoy every minute of it, even if that means it's a choice between, you know, going and having fun and then missing your 9 a.m. lecture. I'd say take it. As long as you make sure you hit the grades you need to, you get the deadlines and you revise when you need to, enjoy it. You know, and this definitely doesn't work for everyone, but, you know, most of my university time I spent through the terms enjoying it as much as possible, and then revision times would be working as hard as possible. So as long as you have that balance, yeah, it's so fun. So just enjoy every minute.
Well, on that controversial note, I'm going to thank you all so much for joining in today and taking time out. I know that this is a working week and a working day, even though we're all still at home. So thank you so much for taking time out to join us. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope that's been really useful. I'm going to end the recording now. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in and watching this recording of the 2020 Partners Ask the Expert session for Accounting and Finance. We give our biggest thanks to Jen for hosting this session, along with Aidan, Hayley and Tom for joining us and giving such great insight and expertise into their industry. Hopefully you found the session useful, and remember to stay up to date with Newcastle University Careers Service, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us at NCL Careers on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We hope to see you in September. Best of luck and take care for now.